what does the project want to be and who is it going to serve? That's where you start to really build that aspirational lifestyle. We have the opportunity to have people show up and go, oh my gosh, I have to bring everybody I know here.
Do you see consistent themes that come up about like the stories that connect to people?
I think the one thing that I can say is
this week's guest is Matt Dean, founder of Dean & Co., a marketing company specializing in commercial real estate. I met Matt when he reached out to us over a year ago because he saw an alignment in values with what we were doing at Building Culture. And I love stuff like this because after meeting him, we realized he was exactly the kind of person we were looking to work with. And we ended up hiring his company a few months back to do the marketing for our new urban neighborhood project at Townsend, which I cannot wait to reveal to you because it is freaking awesome. Today, you'll hear from Matt on how to create a brand, maintaining authenticity, and building a great business through high-quality, long-term relationships. My name is Austin Tennell, and this is the Building Culture Podcast. Well, Matt, thanks for coming on the podcast. It's great to have you here in Oklahoma City. It's your first time here, right?
It is indeed. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so, I just want to tell a little bit about how I met you because we have a pre-existing relationship, although this is our first time meeting in person. You reached out to Building Culture a year ago, right?
A little over a year ago, yeah.
Okay. So can you tell me or talk about why did you reach out to Building Culture? And then two, not just Building Culture, why have you started reaching out to people like that, just being like, I want to work with you? What's kind of the strategy or your thinking there?
So I'll answer your second question first and then go into the first one. So for me and my career and just what I've always done in life is anybody that I respect, that seems interesting, that I feel like I can learn something from, I have always taken the initiative to say, could I have 10 to 15 minutes of your time to just say hello, introduce myself, ask questions, and just learn about who you are and let you know who I am. And so that's something that I've done for quite a long time. And it's allowed me to talk to a lot of my mentors that I have now. People I never thought that I would be able to talk to will give you the time of day if you reach out to them. And so that's something that I've always done. And with Building Culture, I think I came across Instagram of you guys. I'm a massive architecture fan. And when I saw what you guys were doing, I was just like, this is some of the most beautiful work I've ever seen. I just have to say hello. What are you guys doing? And can I talk to you guys for 10 minutes just to introduce myself and figure out what's going on? So that's kind of how that came about.
No, that's cool because, I sent you Matt, the other Matt that works with me, Matt Hayes. He brought you up, and he reached out and I looked at your website. I was like, hey, this is really cool. We're not in the, we don't have the money or the budget or anything for marketing right now. Or I think we might have already been going through something. So I didn't reach out, but I think you had that conversation with Matt and you were kind of in the back of our minds. And then you kind of came back up, 4 months ago or something like that. Kind of got brought up to attention and then able to actually engage you on the Townsend, which is, I'm not going to talk about this project a lot here because we're keeping it mainly under wraps. I wanted to be more of a surprise as we get closer to really being able to announce it. But a really, what would I call it? A beautiful collaboration. I feel like that's what it was, where sometimes things people really, and just teams too, right? Like your team and my team, I feel like on this project really understood each other. And that was what was so fun to me to watch happen is us communicating about what this project is in our hearts, and then you and your team being able to take that and capture the spirit of it and put it into visual identity and words and things that the moment we saw it, we were like, it connects. It's right, And there was lots of tweaking along the way, but it was really just such a cool experience.
Yeah. And I think what that's a testament of, and to your point, when I first reached out, there was no, hey, I like what you guys are doing. Let me brand one of your projects.
Right.
we all get cold calls, emails every day, let's work together immediately. Let me do this. I'm a relationship first person. And I truly believe if we can create a great relationship and we're both doing something really interesting that complements each other, the universe will figure out a way for us to work together. And so that was my whole goal, was build a relationship and one day something will happen. And I got lucky that Townsend was the first project, because that's the project that made me reach out to you guys. But over that time, you and I connected with Matt, everything felt right. And it led to setting the precedent for a really great collaboration between our teams that was just based off of good relationship with good people.
Yeah. Every year in business, I think that I go on and get older, it becomes more about people, and not only the people we're serving, but the people we're working with too. And you can't always choose who you're working with, especially early on in the business. You have to
say yes a lot.
You have to, you got to make money, you got to survive. But finding kind of like that tribe and then being able to go out and do things. I was thinking about it. It was kind of like a dance. I know this is kind of weird, but I think in terms of stories a lot. And we were just talking about my foot before this, and kind of that I'm a little bit incapacitated now. But my days at KPMG, and I just recently saw pictures of this, which is kind of funny. That's why it's on my mind. I had a bout with swing dancing for about a year. While I was working at KPMG and miserable out of my mind, I was trying to find something that was fun. So I ended up doing swing dancing. And there's something I learned doing swing dancing, which is just that the connection during a dance is unbelievable. And I mean the connection, I don't really know how to describe it, but there's a lead and a follow, and you have this connection, and it's more than physical. There's like there's something that gets translated there. And it reminded me of like us, like a great collaboration, us working together. There's kind of this like feeling, beautiful feeling. And then you have this great dance, and then you go and you move on, you keep doing other things. And then maybe one day we'll be able to have another great dance together. But sounds silly, but no, I think there's something to it as well.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And in the way that I would kind of bring that back to the work that we do is Jackie, my wife, who co-founded our agency alongside me, always says this really great line about who we're working with. And a great collaboration leads to really good and healthy work. But when one of the two people or someone in the group just becomes a tool, that person is just creating something that someone's asking them to create. So for our agency at Dean & Co., we have some marketing clients that at some point, we just become a tool for them, where they're saying, do this, do that. And when we get that feeling in our agency, we start to review that client and say, are we helping them and are they helping us? And if the answer turns to no, then it's just no longer a good fit.
Yeah.
A really healthy collaboration is, I respect you, you respect me, you have an expertise on one side and so do we. Let us work together and respect each other to where we are continuing to build on top of ideas and execution. And that's what leads to really good collaborations, is when you have that type of relationship where you create a beautiful dance at the end. It's not just someone saying, hey, make this brand for me. I want it to be red, black, look like this with this typeface.
Right.
Go hire someone else for that and go work for someone that's willing to do that. That's not a collaboration that builds excellence.
Right.
So that's something that we always look for in great partners like Building Culture, is being able to have that respect and put ideas on paper and start talking. And maybe an idea is not great, but it starts leading to other things. And then together we craft something that's really special.
Did you have to do things kind of differently to learn this? Like, because you talk very confidently about like finding the right people and how you very intentionally do, try to run your business now and the clients you're trying to take. How did you learn that? Is that through mentors? Is that through experience? Is that through doing it really wrong? Or did you just kind of stumble into it from the beginning doing it like that?
The simple answer is we're still learning it. Yeah. And I think what I mean by that is you can meet people and build a relationship and then start working together. And the precedent is set that, oh, this is going to be great. There does, especially, a marketing client can be a 2-year client, 3-year client plus. A branding client could be a 6-month client. There is a point where fatigue can get in the way, is what I'll call it. Where, I'm losing interest in the marketing thing, so I just need you to do this. Or, and that's stuff that you don't see right away. I don't know how busy this person's team is going to be. I don't know how busy people are going to get and stop responding or missing meetings or something like that. So sometimes you go all in with somebody and you think that it's going to work out the way that you want it to. And then over time, you just learn that that's expectation may not really be there.
Yeah.
So as much as we try to gauge that up front, you can't always be perfect in that relationship. And that's okay. That's just part of learning how to deal with people, how to deal with teams. And then you just take that learn to the next one when you try to assess something.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That it is a process. I mean, I think that's how I describe building culture, where it's constantly figuring out who we are, like in a new way, because in some ways, like each week, it even seems when you're a small company, you're always being and becoming at the same time. And especially when you're young, which is quite fun though. I enjoy it.
I think it's great. And, your business in 6 months is not going to be the same as it was, in 6 months from right now is going to be different than right now. And that's just a part of learning. And for us, we started our agency with a simple motto of do good work with good people.
I love it. Simple and just right on point.
Simple and effective. If you keep doing good work, with good people, it'll lead to more good work with more good people. If you start doing bad work with bad people, that's who you're going to surround yourself with. So
it's so much more fun to work with,
great people.
With great people.
Yeah. And so that's a big precedent that we have. And when we gauge going in with clients, that's just a learn that we had. Jackie's been in the marketing and advertising space for years. And so many times agencies will just bring on clients because they pay, and that client can make your life hell, your team work all night, whatever it may be. And so we tried to be extremely intentional with Dean & Co. to say, we are going to work with people that really respect us, with people that we really respect, and ultimately build really great relationships that last.
Yeah, I really like that philosophy. And one of the things I want to talk to you about today, that was kind of, because we got to hang out yesterday, which was really fun, and got to get some good food and drive around. And one of the things that kind of came to my mind as I think about from a building culture perspective of how do we build great places again? And I talk about how, 50% of that's the bricks and the sticks and the how to, and the other 50% is kind of like cultural. And the interesting thing to me about marketing is, at least good good marketers and people, it's really, they're your artists. And it's, and I would say what defines a really good artist is the ability to see, not necessarily the ability to do per se. And I'm curious to kind of start there, as I want to get into what you kind of see in kind of your day-to-day, even like culturally and things. But start with I know that sounds like a really simple question. Maybe it's a simple answer, but what is marketing to you? How would you define marketing? Because it's a very industry, it's a very industry-like term and a very inhuman term, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's actually a really big question. Marketing to me is really understanding your business, your goals, and who you're trying to reach. We always, we get asked all the time, hey, can you just send us what's a marketing package for you guys? I always say we don't have a marketing package because every business is different. Every target audience of a business is different. And every business's goals are different. That relates to a place. Every place is being built differently, offering something different and trying to connect with somebody different. So for us, a lot of what we do is built on brand. So we aren't necessarily running campaigns, but it's more of how do we tell that story authentically about a brand for a long period of time to where it starts to land of, okay, we are bringing in the people that we want. We are executing the way that we want, and we are reaching people through the channels that we need to. And so that for me is how we see marketing. And I mean, if we're talking about places, that goes into who are the residential tenants that we're trying to bring in? What commercial uses are at the project, if there's any? What are the events that we're going to have? The programming, is there art? Is it tech? What is it going to be? And those are different things that start to layer into marketing, I believe, for a place is how do you keep top of mind? How do you keep people really engaged with what you're doing? And how do you tell that story for many, many years, not just coming right out of the gate?
Yeah, it's something that, I mean, brands get built over time. They become their own identities. That, what would you say? Like, would you say that people see themselves reflected? I guess I think a lot of times marketing is storytelling and inviting people into a story. And, you mentioned authenticity, which is going to be interesting to talk about too, because marketing can be a tough game there because you are working with clients. And if a client is trying to make something that you don't really believe in, right? Like you still have to like tell that story, kind of like a real estate agent's got to sell the house. Like what would you say makes an authentic story, or even makes an authentic company, or is that?
I may not. You were about to say something that really hits the nail on the head for me when it comes to building a great brand, and then I'll address the marketing thing separately. But I always say that what makes a really great brand is creating a company that is attractive to the lifestyle of the people that you are trying to seek. So, you look at Yeti. If I am buying that Yeti product, it has qualities that I admire and things that I really like about it, and that equates to my lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so I think that to me is, if you can create your target audience of who you want to ultimately sell to or have come to your place, and I identify with that because it fits my lifestyle and the way that I want to live and the way that I want to be and the way that I want to be seen, I've created a brand, and that's something special.
Yeah.
I can create a product, a new type of, number 10 envelope, and I can come up with a marketing campaign why it's the best envelope, and I can sell them. That's a marketing campaign, and companies run those all the time because most e-commerce companies or whatever have to sell products. So there's campaigns around that. But I think the creating a brand is something a lot more special, that you really have to be up to date with your target audience's lifestyle and connecting with that and enhancing their lifestyle, because ultimately they want to be seen as having that product or having that thing or representing that company or being a part of that place.
Yeah, no, I mean, we do, what do they call it? Just, we really do express values in our purchases and things like that. Like, absolutely. Whether that's houses or food or whatever.
The car you drive, the restaurants you eat at.
It's not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes people think like, oh, conspicuous consumption or something. But there's something real to that too. Like my own dollars are they're revealing my values. So I might say I value something, but I can look at my dollars and where they're going and might tell me I don't value something. Because I do think how people spend money matters. Going back to like authentic brands. So when we were doing the Townsend, I remember coming to you and kind of like talking about like maybe even somewhat worrying a little bit too much about who the audience actually was, and me trying to figure out who the audience was instead of like figuring out what the project was and what the project wanted to be, and then figuring out how to tell that story to an actual audience. And maybe I'm saying this wrong, but I feel like you really encouraged me to don't try to. We've never tried to be everything to everyone at all. We know that, but I think there was still a little bit of fear in me even on this project of like, oh, maybe we need to kind of like open it up. And you're like, no, just be authentic of like what it really is, because then you're actually going to speak to those people, and then those people will come and those people will tell your story for you. And I thought that was such a really helpful kind of boundary you put up with us.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And the word authentic is probably going to get me and you in trouble on this podcast, because everyone has their own version of that, and people don't like the word anymore. But for me, what I really think about when I say an authentic brand or an authentic place is we put a lot of work and effort and accuracy into the brands that we build. I mean, Townsend, you went through it with us, and we established a set of values. What are we going to be? What are we going to stand for? And when I say authentic brands, if you And of course, brands can evolve over time, but the ethos of that brand, the mission of that brand, if that is established and that is our North Star, when you start straying from that North Star, I think your authenticity starts to drop.
Right.
And so often, I mean, we've seen this before, and that's why we try to protect the brand as much as possible by helping with the marketing and helping with the overall design and continuing the storytelling, is to maintain what we've created and what we put a lot of effort in making sure that we deliver on every single time.
Yeah.
And I think delivering on it every single time is what I mean by being authentic is, I brought up Yeti. If they came out with a water bottle that broke because they went with a cheaper material, they have lost authenticity entirely from their brand.
Right.
So you have to continue to deliver on that. And even if it costs you more money, if it is a little bit more difficult, don't be afraid of it being difficult.
Right.
We see that in commercial real estate all the time. Here's this place and here's what we're going to go after. We're going to have these types of tenants, et cetera. Okay, we haven't got these tenants because it, X, Y, or Z. Let's get a credit tenant in here. Well, now you went away from the entire brand that we've created. Right. So I think that's where I talk about authenticity, is holding true to your word and holding true to your values for a very extended period of time.
It's really interesting. The marketing, in some ways, or in a project, in commercial real estate, the marketing kind of precedes the actual product that comes out. But what I like about that is it's actually truly setting the intention. And then I think, like you're saying, you have to actually follow through with the product if you want to be authentic. Or you actually kind of have been very inauthentic and telling a false story. Yeah. And the other kind of component of that, I think, is, in the questionnaire that you sent us, the first question is literally, why are you doing this project? Besides money, tell me why. And I can't remember, there's a couple other kind of questions there. And I just loved that because it allows me to actually just pour out why we are doing this. And then you guys actually understand. And then we were going through our first meeting together and you're kind of walking through the process and you pull up, Simon Sinek's Start with a Why, or I call Simon Sinek Start with a Why. I think you called it
the golden circle.
The golden circle, whatever.
Yep.
But we always talk about that here too. Start with the why, not the what, not the how. Because I think a lot of times in marketing, it's about just selling the product. I've got a product, I need to sell it. I need marketing so I can sell the product. And I think that's in some ways why marketing can get a bad rep sometimes, because it is just like peddling to try to sell something. But I think when it's authentic storytelling, it's actually vision casting. And I think there's it's almost like what we ended up coming up with Townsend was actually helping flesh out the idea of Townsend. And the way I see it now is like Townsend and what we've created, that story is really an invitation. Like we're showing people what we intend and what we mean, and how everything about the project is kind of like working towards this thing, but it still requires people to come and actually do those things and be the people that is the vision. Because we can't, as real estate, as marketers, whatever, we can't make people do anything. We can't create flourishing. I like to say all we can do is set the stage. We can set the stage, tell the story, help people envision it. And then let the amazing, creative, and wonderful people come in and create something, actually start the businesses, do the things, create the community behind it, and create something really wonderful.
Yeah. And we talk about this a lot where, it used to be benefit marketing, right? You brush your teeth, they're going to be 95% whiter. Yep. That's a benefit of using that toothpaste, Twice came out and they went to a belief system. Here's a morning toothpaste and a night toothpaste, and it's going off of a belief that this will make your life better because we've enhanced your morning and we've helped you at night as well with something more refreshing. Instead of mint, it's this other thing. And so I think in belief marketing, you're selling this idea that it's going to do something to make your life better in some way versus a direct benefit from that product, right, or whatever it may be. But then you have to actually deliver on that. So when we say we're going to do this thing and, this is the brand we've created, come enjoy it, that experience when someone gets there needs to match whatever that belief marketing was, or else you're going to lose a fan. So that's something that we always talk about. And what you and I have talked about is how do you create this brand and then really execute on that and tell people it's going to be great? And when they get there, they go, oh my gosh, this was great. I'm going to tell 50 people about it.
Yeah. I think that's I think what you helped me see is go after just the right person and then they'll do the marketing for you anyway. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And then I it's the early adopters when you're doing something new. And especially what you guys are doing with Townsend and building culture is, if something hasn't really been done before, you need early adopters to come in and say, hey, I bought into the belief, I bought into the values, I bought into the brand. I am going to take a risk and I'm going to go there, or I'm going to buy a house there, or I'm going to open a business there, whatever it may be. And if done very well and you guys deliver on that, they're going to go out and say, this is the best decision I've ever made. I'm a part of this. It's now a part of my lifestyle.
Right.
I'm going to tell my family about it. I'm going to bring my friends here. This is now the thing that I associate my lifestyle with.
And it's cool because it's kind of symbiotic, because then it becomes something that we wanted, because we actually got the people, the values and things in there that we want. So it actually turns into the actual project. Once again, it's kind of, we can only get it 50% there. It's the other 50% is the people coming. And so that's what I love about it. It's like, go after the right people.
And I think we live in a society too, where we just want instant gratification right away. For me, I think you can create something, whether it's a product, a business, whatever it may be, and you can make it really big, really fast with all the different tools out there in the world, social media, whatever it may be. For me, what's far more impressive is, can you make it past 2, 3, 4, 5 years and still be relevant and still be delivering on that promise? That to me is exceptional, because that's the marathon game, not the sprint game that we're used to right now. And that's something that really holds a special place in my heart is, can we create something that is going to exist for a long period of time that is still what we wanted it to be when we started with that vision and that mission?
It's interesting. It starts with durable. I was just writing about this, but I was making some connections. But that durable architecture really starts with durable ideas. And that's really what we're talking about too, because it's ideas that actually end up persisting over time and get expressed in the world differently, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard to be relevant for a long period of time.
Right.
You own a business, I own a business. Our first 2 years felt relatively easy in business. Going into this new year that we're in, it's become very clear to me that the marathon game is really difficult, and you have to be okay with changing and adapting and learning. But we always say, are we doing good work with good people? Are we working internally with really good people, externally with really good people? And if we are, we at least know if the business is evolving a little bit or changing a little bit, if we are still able to say yes to that vision and mission that we told ourselves we were going to do, then we're fine.
Right. You mentioned the North Star earlier, and that's how I really think of too, is which even that North Star, it's kind of so distant and so big. It really is just like a guide that kind of keeps you. So even as the building evolves and changes, ultimately that a lot, you're still heading in that direction. And that's what's kind of allowed, has been fun about building culture as we start getting, the team is growing with like-minded people that are adding on to the culture, adding on to the ideas and perspectives. And it's diversity, but around a shared value and a shared vision. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, I did a talk about this to the Savannah College of Art and Design, a big group of students. And what I was mentioning to them is something that I did when I was 19, student at SCAD. I literally told myself by the age of 30, I want to own my own agency. I loved working with people. I knew I wasn't going to be the best designer. I'm not going to Pentagram or something like that, but I knew how to work with really good people and put people in a room to do something. And immediately I was like, that's my thing. And what I started calling that was my ultimate goal. And so this could be for a business. It maybe is for a place, but my idea of the ultimate goal is set your North Star, your ultimate goal at this really, really big thing. And that way you can work backwards from that and say, is this next job helping me get to my ultimate goal? Yes or no? It's easy to now make decisions in your life because you have this thing that you're assessing against. There's a lot of times where people just start kind of going and they're like, maybe I want to be this thing one day. You know, it might be hard for some people to say, this is exactly what I want to do. But for me, it was easy to say, that's where I want to be. That's my ultimate goal. And every decision that I've made, every job that I've taken, person that I've met, I've really assessed against that. And it has helped make decision-making so much easier.
I agree. Or like, I think I should say, I've experienced that myself. And the more clarity I get around the vision of building culture, the easier it is to make those decisions too.
Yeah.
Go forward and get new opportunities and things.
And you can put that to a place as well. What do you want Townsend to be in 10 years is the ultimate goal. And then, you know, if there's residential or commercial tenants that are going to be there, you can assess against that. Is this going to help us get to where we want to be? Yeah. I think it really is valuable to do that. And that's why we set the vision and the mission when we start that work together in the branding process, because it really helps us assess, is this what we're doing? Is this going to help us get to our ultimate goal? Is this going towards our North Star? Are we being authentic to that? And if it doesn't make sense and it's not aligning, it's not good for the project.
Right.
Makes decision-making so much easier and so much faster and so much more efficient.
It does. That's my experience as well. You know, started talking about, you were towards the beginning, you know, understanding the target audience. So not only just what the company that's trying to market something, even if that is very authentic or whatever, you know, but then there's the target audience. But it's not just identifying the target audience, it's understanding the target audience and what they want. And really, in a lot of ways, it's what people want, I think. And so I'm curious, in your kind of experience, because in your career of marketing, do you see consistent themes that come up about, like, here's what people like really want, like over and over again? These are the stories that connect to people.
I think the one thing that I can say is the word aspirational. That doesn't mean everybody wants a Rolex. Not what I mean by that. What I mean by aspirational is I genuinely think the vast majority of people want to feel good about themselves in some way and aspire to something bigger. It may be harder for some people. It may be easier for some people based on, oh, I did buy a Rolex. I'm happy and I aspired to something. Or it could be, you know, I started going on a walk every day and I'm aspired to be this thing, you know? So I think for me, that's something that I've always seen really consistent is you are trying to make someone's life just a little bit better through this thing, whatever it might be. And that's something that I think connects through and through to everybody. No matter what you do, there's always something in there for somebody to go, oh my gosh, this was a great part of my day.
Yeah. No, I think I think the aspiration part's cool. I think a lot like that. Like I'm always thinking about what's possible. And I don't think human beings are meant to just kind of like stay stagnant kind of in the place. Like no matter what, like even if you've made it with money, I mean, there's a reason that a bunch of wealthy people tend to be very miserable. A lot of them, not very happy, at least. Maybe miserable is not a good word. Because I think sometimes in American culture, we talked about that, you know, just wanting instant gratification, all this, and money in our minds can equal that, because then you can just kind of get what you want. You can get your physical needs taken care of. You can get those desires taken care of. But it doesn't necessarily lead to happiness or contentment, because an aspiration almost needs to continually evolve. It almost needs to be infinite, I guess you could say. And if you attach that to money, you hear that a lot of like, what's your number? Like I see this a lot on, you know, like business advisors and things like that. Like make sure you know like how much is enough so that you can, like, if you reach that, you can stop striving for more. Because I do see a lot of people with a lot of money where their life ends up becoming about pursuing money and not the things, you know, about your life that you can do because of the money.
I think that's where I love the word aspiration, though, is because there are people that just aspire to be around their family more. So they take a different job that allows them to do that. It wasn't about money, and maybe they make less money, but they get to be around their family more. I aspire to build a part of my day and figure out how to go on a 30-minute walk every single day. It doesn't have to be justified by money in the pursuit of I aspire to get a Mercedes or something like that. I think there are aspirations that people are always looking for in their lives. And I think a place can ultimately help with that. Obviously, there's products that can do that. There's technology that can do that, et cetera. But I think that's something that we always look for is what is our target audience really looking for, and what can we deliver to enhance someone's life time and time again.
Yeah. No, I think detaching aspiring from physical goods is so important, because I'm not saying you can't aspire to something, a physical good or whatever, but like you're saying, it is there's intangible things, whether it's eating or health or your family time.
I don't want to sound cliche about this, and it may not be for everybody, but I think what I have to say about that is not everyone is aspiring to be a CEO, to be an astronaut, to be something great. Some people just want to live their life in a happy place doing what they love. But I still think that those people are aspiring to do something in their lives.
Right. No, because I agree with that's what I'm agreeing with that, and more like, what are those simple things? Because part of the stuff that came out in Townsend was it's not about the big things, because in American culture, generally speaking, we make everything so big. It's about the weekend. It's about the Christmas. It's about that summer vacation. It's about these big events and just the way we live. Like, I'm going to go to my house and then I'm going to have this big event because I'm going to go eat, that it's a very formal plan. We've made this restaurant, we're going to drive to it, versus what we've talked about, like the beauty of everyday life and the beauty of just simple relationships, or saying hi, or ordering coffee from the same barista several times a week, and you see a couple people that you know when you walk in and out. Like that's how much more of a richer experience that is than driving through the Scooter's drive-through. And so I'm just wondering, like, in those things, because I'm trying to connect this back to the built environment, and I should probably say that, is as you've marketed and as you look at people and what they want and what they aspire to, what do they want? Like, how would they reflect that in a human habitat if, like, you could put those values in a built environment?
I think you and I are talking about kind of one and the same thing, where, aspiration, lifestyle, all of these things I think work together. And I think we all aspire to live a certain way. And that could mean something much more simple for someone, and someone who is aspiring to live in a very luxurious way. They could have completely different outlooks on life, different products they have, different places that they eat, whatever it is. But if they are owning their lifestyle that really makes them happy, then I think that is an ultimate goal for somebody, in form of, that's my aspiration in life, is to live this certain way. So when we talk about the built environment with a lot of people, we always try to achieve what are we building? What does it want to be? And that's a lot of the conversation that we had, was we don't want to be for everyone. That's not the point of what we're doing with this project. What does the project want to be, and who is it going to serve? And that's where you start to really build that aspirational lifestyle, to say, hey, we want people to feel healthy, people to feel connected, people to have these simple moments in life. Okay, well, what are those things that we are going to build into this project and build into this built environment to make sure that we are delivering on that?
Yeah. Do you find, because I feel like what we did with Townsend was very authentic process, right? Where we're kind of, and I feel like it is an invitation to kind of like people to join a story, you could say. Have you found, things that appeal to people that maybe marketers do, that's almost like marketing to people's more like base instincts, and like, what are some of those things? And I mean, we talked about instant gratification being one. I would think that's a big one. Take this and fix your life. Buy this house, fix your life. That's something I've never wanted to do in building culture. is buy this house and be happy ever after. That's hard in marketing because you are trying to give vision. But it's like, our house is not going to fix your marriage. It's not going to fix your family if you're not connected with your kids. Because I have experienced in my 8 years in business that, I mean, when people are building a house, it's very expensive to do, right? Like it's a long process, and it's probably the most expensive thing they'll ever do. And a lot of people, and I hear this from other builders too, this is just my experience, when people are building a custom house, they literally just think it's going to fix their life, everything about it. And when it doesn't, it's kind of like your fault as the builder. And I think a lot of stuff's marketed that way too, like on purpose. This will fix your life. This will make you happy. How do you kind of like fight against that as in your company? And then also, I don't know, what are some of the other messages out there that you would kind of be like, yeah, I really don't like that type of marketing?
So first and foremost, that's the reason why we don't do residential real estate is, especially, in California where I live, every residential ad is a beautiful woman walking through a home, diving into a pool.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
That's an aspiration of someone, but not a lot of people are aspiring to that probably. So we have stayed away from that because I think, while beautiful videos are made and beautiful homes are created, that's not something that feels authentic. And I think that's something that's so cliche. What I love about commercial real estate and the project that we're doing together at Townsend and other projects that we work on through the United States is, one, in branding, we have strategic ways of connecting with people where it goes to the why first, not, the inverse of that, saying what exactly it is. We start with the why. Why is this place interesting, cool, unique? What are the value systems that we are going to deliver somebody, and why does somebody want to be aligned with it? So we develop, what do we stand for? What do we stand against? What's our belief, our mission? Those are things from the branding perspective that's your first thing when you land on a website. You can read it, you can see the visual identity. I understand that. Where what I love about commercial real estate is it allows you to go so much deeper, especially with mixed use projects, which is my favorite project to work on. And something that we talked at length about is your on-site tenants need to have certain amenities to support their lifestyle that we are going to deliver them. We also need commercial uses that are going to help enhance their way of life and make sure that they have what they need. And ultimately, the surrounding community will also visit and buy into that. And I think that's where, marketing, I think, is a loose term, because if we can merchandise a mixed use development with really cool commercial tenants, if we can give the residents amenities that enhance their life, things that we've talked about, then you are creating a place that someone's never going to want to leave.
Right.
That's their place, their home. They can go do this thing. And that, to me, is what's the most exciting about commercial real estate and working with the developers, is really understanding, we can create a brand, but a brand in commercial real estate is so much bigger because it's all those components of that mixed use project that makes that brand become alive.
And it has to unfold over time. It's not like boom, done. And that's kind of what I was getting to about the invitation, where really it is part of the product. Like if you actually have good, true, authentic marketing with a good kind of true, authentic project, like they're the same thing. You're not selling something, you're inviting something. And I think that's a really cool, and it does become its own thing in time. And I think the mixed use projects are cool because you are kind of creating like micro economies, markets, vibrancy. We're just a little mini version of civilization, like in just 1 acre. Yeah, that's kind of how I think about it. It's kind of cool.
And we talk about, brand is not just a logo; it's all these other things that get involved with it. But why I fell in love with commercial real estate is we can create a verbal identity, a visual identity, and put a social media account and a website together. That's cool. But what's really cool to me is actually helping the project by merchandising it with the right tenants, residential tenants, commercial tenants. We did a project in Newport Beach that had a marina on it where people could park their yachts, and there were offices, and there's residential, and there's a restaurant, and there's retail. that to me becomes really exciting because someone can see the brand on a website, but when they get there, you're now in this little micro magical place where you're just like, oh my God, this is really cool. And you have all these little brand touch points, wayfinding signage, environmental graphics, whatever it might be. You have all these really cool things that someone is physically and visually experiencing the brand firsthand versus just seeing something on a website and saying, I want that to be shipped to my house.
Right.
We have the opportunity to have people show up and go, oh my gosh, I have to bring everybody I know here.
Yeah.
And you say marketing, like, what is that? I think the most powerful thing with commercial real estate is having the ability to have hundreds, if not thousands of people come to your location in one day. That is an immense amount of people that are physically interacting with the place, and they're going to tell X amount of people about that when they leave and say, that was one of the cooler places I've ever been. You got to go.
Yeah. And actually on the commercial real estate part, I want to ask you, like, what do you see? What are the things you're seeing in commercial real estate right now that like is becoming what are some of the most successful things you're seeing, whether that you want to call that trends or practices or whatever, like where are things heading?
That's a great question and something that I've actually been laughing about in my mind a lot recently. I think a couple of years ago, placemaking became the word. Placemaking. What does that mean? We have to have an awesome mural. We have to have events. We have to have a cool restaurant. It was kind of these things that now feel very plug and play to me. And so now when we are approaching projects and we're working with developers and owners, we're saying, okay, those feel very standard and they've all been done before. And it's easy to put up a cool mural and have people take a photo of it, But what is the next thing that's really going to make a project special? And I think what we're seeing a lot of right now is a focus on human health and human wellness. Wellness may not connect with everyone, but how is a project actually helping people live a better life?
Right.
Is that walkability? Is that connection with people? Is that air quality within units, within stores? What are those things that are really actually making people more healthy and living a better life? And that's a really big trend that we're starting to see right now is how do we create an environment that not only makes people feel welcome and, oh, this is really cool, but how is it making someone's life that much better? And what can we do to add little things in to create connection, experience nature, be more healthy, these types of things?
That's awesome. That's your experience, because that's exactly what we're trying. I mean, literally, we say over and over again, what is the purpose of architecture? To facilitate human flourishing, which is exactly what you're talking about. It's not a pretty cool mural or so that you can go get a beer down somewhere. Like, don't get me wrong, there's that's great that you can do that, but It really is about living a better life. Like, and that health and wellness is so integrated into our built environment. I always use the example of hardware and software. If hardware is the built environment, just like a computer, and software is the people. Your iPhone without an iOS system and apps is literally an expensive paperweight. You have to have the people, but you have to have the hardware that can run good software. If you have bad hardware, you can't run good software. Now you can have great hardware, and once again, you still have to have the people to come in and create it and make it great. But that's really exciting to me that you're seeing that as a trend in the industry, because I see that too. But of course, I'm fairly. Sometimes I feel insulated because, of course, I'm trying to surround myself with people that are also doing great things, and there's people all over the country doing some really, really amazing projects, and I'm excited to see the next evolution of how we think about placemaking 2.0.
Yeah,
because you're right. Because it's like we've talked about during Townsend, like placemaking. Well, we didn't talk about that one, but like how community has been kind of like over. Everyone is just like community, and amenities is just that one makes me roll my eyes every time.
And I think we are becoming ever more isolated from each other as humans in general. I think, our phones, our head's always in it. We live in our own world, right? We walk through, one thing that I've never really enjoyed is really big projects where you go into a common area or you're walking from store to store and it's, a 200 foot gap between the buildings or something where you're just in this really big space and you feel really disconnected. And I think what we're starting to see is there's a lot of projects that are coming out on a smaller scale that's truly offering different places to connect with people and making sure that your head's up and you have an interest in the person next to you and you want to talk to somebody. We've been working with a developer who has multifamily developments where they have one exit where basically 10 units, 10 people per se, exit out of the same way. And it's kind of forcing those 10 people to make connections,
right?
Versus having these really long hallways where you walk past somebody, hey, how you doing? So it's more of how are you? We talked about this, like the mailbox.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring it up.
How do you put that in a place that's inviting where I don't just get mail and walk past the person next to me getting their mail? I want to create some sort of environment and some way of facilitating a conversation between those two people. They may not become best friends, but if they see each other and they say hello, crack a smile, maybe there's a joke in there, say hi to the dog, something like that. Well, now you're making a connection, which we all know is much healthier than staying solo by yourself the entire time.
It's so interesting on the solo and all that because, every statistic said, I just was reading an article in The Atlantic about it was something like why did we suddenly stop hanging out or something like that, and it was talking even specifically about teens and like the number of times they hang out with friends during the week, and the graph is just like boom, over the past 10 years, which is really tragic among kids and teens and all that. And you see the levels of depression, anxiety, and loneliness and suicide and all that. And I just read this one that the average teenage girl is spending something like 4.9 hours on social media or TikTok a day.
Yeah.
And then just a normal teen is like 4 hours. I say normal, whatever the statistic was. That is a profound amount of time. It's weird because we as humans, we really pursue comfort. Like we want to be comfortable and safe. And that's really important. Like we think about, like I don't want to live in some, giant apartment building on top of each other. Like I do like having my own space. I like privacy. Most people like some privacy. Obviously we have different preferences levels, but like I want privacy with the ability to interact, in very kind of like small moments. And that's what I feel like we've really lost in America is the small moments because we have our friends, we have our family. And then once again, we go do the big things. But then everything else is just like strictly because we live in a neighborhood and all we can do is sleep. I kind of make a joke that, most subdivisions are just a collection of sleeping facilities because that's really all you can do there. And I'm being a little tongue in cheek, but I'm not being like, it's actually not that much of a hyperbole to say that when you look at a lot of stuff that's being built today. And the interesting thing is like, and sometimes humans are self-selecting that. But it's also not what makes us most happy. And we know this, like, right, humans are not always attracted to the things that make us happy and healthy. We like drinking alcohol and smoking and doing all sorts of things that aren't like quote unquote good for us. And of course, it's all about moderation and things. But I do think I'm seeing an openness and an awareness of that we do need each other a little bit more than we thought. It's not all about living in a commune or anything we talk about like that. We're not trying to create a commune. Yeah. I don't want to live in a commune. I don't think you want to live in a commune.
Well, and I think kind of going off of that and the trend I am connecting that most with is projects like yours that we're working on with urbanism and trying to change things. I'm the first to admit it. I live in a suburban neighborhood in Orange County and I'm not inspired by it. And I say that to my wife all the time. I'm like, I am not inspired by the environment that I'm in and I don't love it. It weighs on me sometimes. I know one neighbor that lives next to me that I talk to maybe once a week.
Yep.
That's a shame. Like on my street of 50 houses, I know one person that I talk to.
It's the same for me.
You get out of your car and you go right inside. Of course, not every human can live in a really cool kind of built environment like we're talking about. That would be impossible. But I do see a trend of people looking for that more, wanting to be a part of something cool and unique and interesting. And we are very fortunate at Dinaco to be working with people that are doing projects like that. And I think that's really interesting. And it's something that inspires me because that's something that I would like to participate in. And it's really tough, a city like Los Angeles has just been overbuilt, and everything is so expensive that, if you did Townsend there, it would be almost impossible, So I think that hurts a lot of people because you're not going to get that chance to have that really cool thing there. But there's a lot of people moving to places like Oklahoma where they're now seeking that and getting it, and it's making them extremely happy. And so I think that's something that's been really unique and eye-opening for me over the last 2 years, is really connecting with people that are doing projects like that and actually enhancing the way that people live and the way that people interact. And I've never felt more alive working in this industry than right now with the people we're working with.
Yeah. You said something, an important point, because I hear this a lot too. Like, not everyone can live in a vibrant, great area, and that's good. There are so few in the there are so few, and I'm the same way. I love my neighborhood in a lot of ways because it's a beautiful old historic neighborhood. But at the same time, I basically know 3 of my neighbors literally directly across, and I actually really like all of them. We enjoy it because when we take out trash, sometimes we'll chat in the front yard, but that's it. I don't, we never have any other small interactions with anyone else in the neighborhood. But something that is interesting, because it's not like, whenever we think about these places, we're thinking about very nice places and stuff, because they're often, it's where, if we're creating a mixed use environment and stuff with all these cool restaurants, yeah, it's going to be more expensive and all that. But there is Andres Dewani, who's kind of one of the founders of New Urbanism and just kind of this whole movement about this idea of shifting back to building for people first. It was probably 6 years ago. I was listening to him talk, and he was traveling around the country because he came up with all these rules about here's actually how you build places for people. And one of those things was you put front porches. And so you'll see in a lot of these more people focused communities, you'll see front porches everywhere. Why? Because it has this transition from the public to private. So that way, private inside your house, porch, you can sit there, you can engage with people walking by, you can not engage. It's this very eyes on the street kind of thing. And so he was talking about that as a tool for building more human places for connection. But he was traveling around the country visiting trailer parks. And the conclusion he came to is that trailer parks had some of the best community he had ever seen anywhere, bar none. The best communities, the most expensive ones, all that. And I think that's a really cool kind of little anecdote there. That is not, even though, because we're having to build anew, a lot of the stuff is expensive. It's not about the money though. Yeah. It's not about the money. And even his point there was, it's not about the front porches. It's just, it happens that the way that we're building and stuff, that the front porch is causing us to do this, which causes these, other externalities. But I love that when just talking about trailer parks were some of the best, most integrated communities he'd ever seen. Yeah. I just thought it was neat.
Yeah. I also find it fascinating that, especially, driving around Oklahoma City the last couple of days, the idea that before the Great Depression, you can see a lot of these houses that have front porches. And then after the Great Depression, you can see when homes were built because they don't have front porches, because a front porch was a sign of wealth and people wanted to hide that. And I think that's fascinating too, because it's no, that seems a lot more inviting and welcoming. Why'd you get rid of that?
And a 3-car garage out the face? You think that's nicer?
Yeah.
Sure?
And so now there's an abundance of homes that don't have this, because back then there was this idea that it was about wealth or something. So I just find it fascinating that, and I think we're lucky right now to see that human interaction is worth more than I think financial gain.
Yeah.
I think people are seeking that more than ever. I think it's really hard. Some people might be like, well, why don't you go introduce yourself to your neighbor? That's all good and great. But at the end of the day, we have backyards. We don't hang out in the front yard. We go behind our house, and you may get lucky and your neighbor's same age as you and you become good friends, or you have kids the same age or something. But I think for the vast majority, that's not the case. And what's tough about a lot of mixed use projects that I've always looked at and I've wanted to live in is the multifamilies apartments. And I have kids. I don't want to live in an apartment. So Townsend's a really cool opportunity because it's a town home within this mixed use community. And I would live there in a heartbeat because I'm getting the best of both worlds in this development. So I'm hoping that there's a continuing trend of giving people the privacy that they need in spaces that help their families, enhance their lives, but also offer this sense of community and connection that you can hang out outside and you can befriend the people that are around you, enjoy your company, share stories, talk about life, things like that. And I hope that's a continuing trend that we get to see.
Yeah, I think it is. Or at least I hope so, because you're right. Like, I think the same thing about the multifamily, as you say. It's, there's suburban subdivisions, and then there's multifamily if you want to live, downtown. And, but the neighborhoods that we're focused on, and I think there's not just us, there's other people out there, and the whole missing middle stuff. But it's all, so much of it, it's simply removing barriers for just how people already want to live and making it easier. It's not forcing, it's not trying to like, oh, everyone's going to, controlling. It's just really actually setting the stage of how people naturally want to live. Because the problem with how we build now is we've actually put up so many barriers to how people want to live. But it's hard to tell people lose track of it because that's all there is. There's really not another option. Because we run into this a lot when we start talking about urban, people automatically think super dense, like, I don't know, Manhattan or something. And you're like, no, I'm just talking, these are 2-story buildings, like 2-3-story buildings, nothing scary. And the focus is on like humans and well-being and yes, privacy. It's not some like weird agenda. And I actually hate that the 15-minute city idea has gotten hijacked over the past few years, where suddenly it came out of nowhere over COVID. Just suddenly the 15-minute city was this kind of oppressive thing. And it's unfortunate because there are countries and cities out there that were literally oppressing their people, but it wasn't because of their cities. And by the way, it's a way easier to, as all cars go electric, by the way, to just, turn off someone's car than to control a mixed use environment. By the way, just kind of like saying that out loud, if you're worried about these kinds of things.
I think we're going in the right direction right now, at least for what we've seen at Dean & Co. with the people that we have been lucky to be around and be working with. Their values as owners and developers isn't so financially minded as much anymore. It's more thinking about where's the future going. And I think it's going in the direction of really caring about people and being honest about that, not just saying you're going to do it, but really being honest, and fulfilling on that. And so, if we can keep working on projects like that, if we can keep helping people go in that right direction and kind of talk about these ideas, I'd be extremely happy and grateful for that, because it's something that I believe in and something that I think is going to make a true difference.
Yeah, I think so too. And I kind of want to ask a last question, like on what you're saying there of things are moving towards actually caring about people, because it's like, you're right, there's totally that movement. And then there's also the just AI and like kind of literally the opposite happening. And actually, I think that's part of what's giving the other movement, caring about people, like real energy, because it's kind of like the counterculture to all of that. I'm curious, just, being in the industry and you're kind of watching, the rise of social media and AI and influencers and all this kind of stuff. Like, what do you kind of see, even if you're just kind of like guessing, like, where do you see all this stuff going with AI and social media and all that? Do you have any kind of like guesses or theories or just brainstorm?
I have no guess or theory of where it will go. Where I think it will ultimately end up is back in the hands of humans. I think that AI is a great tool to help with certain things as a helping tool, a helping aid. I don't think it's a final solution for anything, at least not right now. There's some great tech coming out where that may be different, and I may be wrong about that. But, I truly think that when we get into the world of everything on social media is going to become a fake video that was never created by a human, it's showing fake humans with a fake product, all these things. There is going to be an overwhelming amount of fatigue in my mind of seeing something like that, where it's going to come back into the hands of humans and say, okay, we need real story. We need real people and emotion and things that are really happening. So maybe that's me being a little bit old school on things, but truthfully, at the end of the day, I think humans always need some level of care, connection, and protection. And I think it will come back into the hands of humans for the long term.
I hope you're right, and I think so.
How many years that is? Couldn't tell you.
Right,
but
and maybe it is kind of a smaller counterculture. Something that's no, it does seem to be kind of a general, what would you say, movement now? If you would say the last 100 years has been, and I'm not a historian or anything, but like treating people kind of like more and more like machines, like we're just gears and microprocessors, or behavioral psychology, where it's just like do this, get this back, and really starting to recognize, and there's more consciousness studies and things about like what is like, holy crap, humans are really complex and really complicated. We are not the same as computers or robots. And I think that's really exciting to be kind of like coming out and being talked about again, because it is more nuanced, and it means that an AI can't teach you the same way a teacher that cares about you could teach you. Like if I'm talking about a classroom. Now, I'm not saying there's not a role for AI in a classroom. Is having an AI teacher better than nothing at all? Probably. But I don't think you can replace like a really well-trained AI with a teacher that genuinely cares about their students. And that I'm kind of using that as just a simple example of, like you're saying, it's still, there's something else that happens, like the connection with the dance, whatever it is. Like there's something about being human, that there's a connection beyond just the information coming in and out, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think a better way to answer it, now that you're kind of talking and I'm thinking about it more, there's so many things that AI is going to replace in the short term, for sure. I can put a P&L into, an AI software and say, analyze this for me and give me a summary of what's going on with this business. It can help with financial modeling. It can help with social media image creation or caption writing or whatever it may be. I think those things are, first and foremost, can quickly, immediately be in danger. But there are so many things, it's not going to be able to develop a place.
Right.
It's not going to create a brand strategy that we have emotionally connected with and developed over time. I don't think
because it started here.
Yeah,
it didn't start here.
I don't think that is going to be possible, because there is emotion and intent behind that. But is it going to replace certain tools? Sure.
Right.
Certain tasks? Sure. But I think there are still, I think humans will win in the long run, and I'll stick to that. And I think having that emotion will be something that we have a very big thirst for once we start seeing a lot of fakeness that's out there.
Yeah, that's kind of my hope is, I kind of like to dream, I guess you could say. So I talk about the Renaissance sometimes, because I'm just very inspired by those times and what humans were thinking about and talking about and doing and working towards and creating. And some of just the most amazing things have come out during that time. And it really is just about believing in who we are and like exploring that, caring about being a human and what does it mean to live kind of the best life, and to pursue something higher than ourselves. And so I think in some ways we've kind of been in this just a wealthy country, and obviously not everyone has the same experience in this country by any means, but where there's kind of this laziness to it of just like, we've kind of got all our physical needs met and we're not having to strive, but then people are realizing comfort and all this kind of stuff isn't making us happy. And that's where those aspirations, going back to the beginning, what you were talking about, come into play, because people are realizing it's not just all about money. It's not just having a 7,000 square foot house that I don't ever have to leave. Maybe I do want to leave my house more often and actually see other people. So yeah, I like it. Like, as you said, in the end, betting on humans.
Yeah. I mean, I think, this could be just a personal opinion, but I look at the movie industry all the time as a very big leader of technology from a marketing and creative perspective. I personally have gotten exhausted of like the Marvel movies, because they all just look so unbelievably fake, and I've lost a ton of interest in that. And so the movies that still win for me are those that are stories written by humans. It's actually people spending more money to shoot live in places that exist in the world that are real. Yeah. And I think that is, to me, my kind of assessment of really having something that's authentic, that feels real and good and moves me, versus having something where you're like, oh, that's a fake world. I'm going to listen and I'm going to watch it. And maybe it's got a good storyline and there's emotion in there. But there's something for me that can't be taken away from the set, the clothes, the script, all these things that a human actually created with live humans, with live clothes, all these things. And I think that to me is where I set my kind of taste is I'm always going to have a thirst for that. And I hope the vast majority are going to as well.
Me too. Well, Matt, thanks for coming on. And I really look forward to revealing to the world what we came up together with Townsend Project, which we will reveal later this year. So
very excited about that as well. And thank you for having me. Awesome. Appreciate it.
That was a really fun conversation with Matt. And funny enough, that's actually my first time meeting him because in person, because he actually came down to Oklahoma City to visit us in another project he was working on and figured, hey, why not do a podcast together while he's here? Hope you got something out of it. I'll put some resources in the show notes. Be sure to check out his website and their product. And he really is a talented person and team. Really, really impressed by what they've done with how they've helped us with our project. If you enjoyed this podcast and enjoying listening to the Building Culture podcast, please like, subscribe, and share. And on Apple and Spotify, if you can leave a 5-star review, it's really helpful. Thanks, and catch you on the next episode.